Hey everybody, it's Emily, the Crazy Worm Lady. I'm here today with our harvest trays that I'm harvesting this week. No matter what, I used this piece of tape from an Amazon box to mark where I had added some blended food last week because that seemed to be working, so I stuck some more in there. I've got my 3-gallon here that I will put my worms into. Check that out, guys. I'm so impressed. It's finally getting to the point where I think I'll have most of my worms out of this compost. I am thrilled about that. It was quite a frustrating process for me, but like I had mentioned to you guys, I like to bring you along for kind of my experimental process on everything that I'm doing, since I consider myself still relatively new. Most of my bins have really only been started in the last 6 or 7 months, so I've definitely boomed as far as the number of systems I'm running, so I like to bring you guys along as I learn how to harvest them and what methods do and don't work. So I'm just pulling all of the worms out of this area here. Some of the food I put in here was pureed pumpkin. People told me that worms would go crazy for pumpkin, so I had a can of it that I added in here. And that seems to be a method that's really working. So let's pull this back a little bit more and check out the rest of this trench here. Interesting, right? They pretty much hung out. See, like 1 or 2, but they pretty much hung out with the pureed food. So I'm just gonna cover this middle back up, grab a few more of these guys that I see just along the surface, and I'm gonna come back later this week and sift out this tray a little bit. So let's look at the other one, see if it was as successful in there, and then we will call it a day. Okay guys, so I'm back into this tray, and this is where I had the blended food in here. And you can see they are just teeming in the area, just like they were in my other mortar tray. They seem to be really loving that pumpkin, so that's great. Trying not to make a mess. Anyone who knows me knows I hate cleaning, and I feel like I'm constantly having to sweep the floor in here, and first world problems, right? But this is definitely doing the trick, and this is going to be my final little mini harvest of these guys before I start sifting later this week when I have some time, because it's not going to be a fast process, but at least we'll have the majority of the worms out, so it won't be quite so time consuming pulling out worms. I've got to have a couple hundred worms still in here, even with all of the worms I've baited out, so it's pretty incredible. Looks like a seed of some sort has decided to sprout in here. And as far as the rest of this trench area, there's a handful of worms, but they definitely got into that blended stuff pretty quick. So I'm going to do the same thing here, try to leave most of this unprocessed cardboard and all in the middle so I can throw that into my new systems. But here's what some of the castings finally looked like as they've cured in this tray. They're not nearly as kind of clayish as they were. And like I've said before, I really don't have to sift this if I don't want to. This compost is beautiful. It would be great just thrown straight into the garden. So I'll see how much I can sift and how much I'll just end up throwing in my stored castings and putting in my garden when I start it. But, you know, all of these side areas that I didn't touch during this harvest process still look absolutely excellent. So I'm glad this method seemed to work, and now I know it for the future. And I'm going to let this sit for a few days while I figure out when I'm going to have a good amount of time to harvest this stuff, and I will bring you guys along for that. So drop your comments below, like this video, subscribe if you want a little bit more content from me, and I will be back with you guys later this week to finish up this harvest.